Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the EXPL show, where this week, we face our greatest fears. Welcome to the EXPL show, the show completely dedicated to the love of video games. I'm your host, Matt Baughman, and today we're going to be talking about why Resident Evil is such a masterpiece of horror gaming. First off, let's talk about the environment of Resident Evil. You're thrown into this mysterious mansion of which you know nothing about and expected to uncover its secrets while looking for your comrades that you've been separated from. Now, the ambiance of this mansion is incredible for a horror video game. It's mysterious, it's empty, it looks like it's been abandoned for years, and you have no idea what's going on. And pretty soon you start running into zombies, and the mystery just thickens as to what is going on inside this mansion. Furthermore, the mansion really allows you to explore at your own pace. It gives you free reign to do whatever you want and uncover its secrets on your own terms. And that's something that's very important in video games, I think, is the player autonomy. Because otherwise, what's the point of playing a game if it's just going to tell you where to go? You might as well watch a movie instead. And the fact of the matter is, Resident Evil does this perfectly. It allows you to uncover the puzzles and secrets on your own, and that allows you to really come to your own conclusions and your own discoveries, and that makes the experience much greater as a player. Next, we're going to talk about Resident Evil's enemies and how they play into the environment and how incredible it is. Now, initially you just fight these very slow-moving, easy-to-avoid zombies, and as an initial player I would just shoot them and essentially assume they were done for. Their bodies would be lying there, and I'd think, okay, well, that's easy. So then when I would go back to these areas to explore some more, once I unlock keys in different areas, I expect them to be free. But one of the most terrifying aspects of this game is the fact that the zombies that you kill will come back later as Crimson Heads, which are far more aggressive, far faster, and far more dangerous to the player. And once I discovered this fact that they would come back to life if I didn't either shoot them in the head or light their bodies on fire, which I was not familiar with those mechanics initially, re-exploring the mansion became even more terrifying than it was initially, because when I initially opened the door I would think, okay, worst case scenario, I'll run into a few zombies and I'll just have to kill them, and they're not hard to dispatch. But Crimson Heads, on the other hand, are very dangerous. They easily can kill you, and they're very fast moving, so you need to be on your toes constantly when you're retreading your tracks to open up new areas, and it really adds another layer of horror when initially I thought, okay, I'll just go back to these areas I've already cleared out, it'll be easy, no stress, but in reality it became one of the most stressful parts of the game, and that's what really added to the horror element. Now, another thing that the environment in Resident Evil does is it references future enemies, which might kind of take away from the horror aspect for some players, but for me, it really made my blood run cold when I heard references to enemies that I would be facing in the future or saw them through windows, and I thought, oh man, I know that's coming up. For example, you run into one of your comrades who's been attacked by a giant snake, he says. Well, initially after hearing this, I thought, oh crap, I'm going to have to go fight a giant snake eventually, and every time I would open up a new door, I'd be scared to run into this giant snake and have to fight it initially, and when I finally got to that, it was so terrifying to look at the giant snake open its mouth in front of you and have to run around it to pick up the item that I needed from that room, that it really just, my palms were sweaty that entire time. I was gripping the controller. I was totally terrified of this giant snake that I could not kill. I tried shooting it, and it would go down, but it would just come right back up, so I just had to run, get the item, and run out. And that's an aspect of video games that you don't see very often, is you run into an enemy that you just have to avoid. You can try shooting it all you want, but there's really nothing you can do, and that really is terrifying for a player to be completely powerless, and it adds to the horror of this game so much. Another great moment of this game when I was playing it was I heard this banging on the door, and I was running to save my game. I had just completed a major area that I wanted to make sure I had progress for, and I heard this banging on the door, and it kept getting louder and louder, and eventually I heard the door open up, and the music that indicates an enemy is nearby played, and my heart just sank into my stomach, and it was so terrifying and so gripping to see this that it was totally enthralling. I was amazed at how engrossed I was in this world and how terrified I was of this zombie coming up behind me that I ran to the save room and had to catch my breath. It was really just an incredible experience. And of course, you see zombies banging on the windows, and I was walking down one hallway, and of course there's where the dogs jump in the windows, which is equally terrifying the first time I saw that happen, because I was totally unexpected, and the dogs can be very hard to kill because they run fast and they're hard to hit. And then when you see the zombies banging on the windows, and eventually the windows break and they come in the next time you go in the room, and I was totally expecting it. But then at the same time, when I saw it happen, it was totally horrifying. I thought all these, 4 zombies running at me, and I had no idea what to do. I just had to turn tail and run, and it was just totally amazing to play. Alright, another aspect of this game that might not be so popular with modern gamers is the controls and the camera in the original Resident Evil. Now, for those of you who don't know, the cameras are at a fixed angle. You have no control over the way the camera points on your player, and the controls are called tank controls, so it's a little bit weird initially to maneuver around, and it can make it a little bit more difficult. But I think this really adds to the kind of helplessness aspect of this survival horror game that makes it so interesting to play, in that you totally have no control over what you're seeing. The game is dictating which angle you're seeing it from, and therefore you can't always see what's going on. Sometimes you have to look at mirrors to find out where the enemies are going to be, and it really adds to the helplessness aspect because of the fact that you aren't in complete control. You're in about 75% of control, and for a horror video game like this, it's perfect. Next to the intensity of this game, the fact that death matters in this game, because it doesn't let you just respawn right exactly where you were. It goes back to your last save spot. And in this game, you have to save using specific ink cartridges for these typewriters in order to save your progress. So you have actually a limited number of saves in this game, and that makes saving and death super important. The stakes could not be higher, because you're about to lose all your progress until the last time you saved, and you can't save scum your way through the entire game, because you can't keep saving and saving every time you get something, because you're just going to run out of saves eventually. So you really have to limit your saves. Death really matters, and when you see that zombie coming at you, it really makes your heart drop, because if you die, you have to go all the way back until your last save. You have to go through everything again, and it can be a real drag to remember all the different items you picked up, and that can really add weight to every time you run into an enemy or every time you encounter something. And that really just terrified me as a player. Every time I would walk into a new room, I knew the stakes were raised and continue to be raised, because I could run into an enemy I could not defeat, or would just get unlucky and get killed, and then I would have to start all over. And that really, really put a weight on every movement I made in this video game. Now lastly, how could we discuss Resident Evil without discussing the lore and the story? And what I love about this game is the fact that you can uncover the story at your own pace. They give you these journal entries, and you look around, and you're surrounded by all this mystery, and it slowly unravels what's happening in this mansion and what has happened. And you look at you find corpses on the ground, and you're wondering what happened, or where are these zombies coming from? What's causing all this madness in this mansion? And why is everything happening? Why do I find a giant snake? Why do I find a plant that's gone off the rails? What is happening? What is causing these corpses to come back to life? And as the game slowly reveals what's going on, it is just so amazing how it's done. It's so amazing how you uncover the mystery yourself. You fill in the gaps as a player, and you get deeper and deeper into this lore and deeper into the mystery, and it's just so incredible to watch and so enthralling to learn about, that I was really on the edge of my seat, not only because of the horror aspect, because of the aspect of what I wanted to find out about this story and how enthralled I was based on the mystery surrounding the Spencer Mansion. Alright, that concludes this week's episode. I'm so happy to talk about Resident Evil. It's one of my favorite games. It's totally taken up most of my free time playing the HD remaster again. And I just really want to hear what you guys have to think about Resident Evil, with Resident Evil 7 coming out next year and Resident Evil 2 Remake on the horizon. It really looks like a great spot for the franchise right now, coming off the total low that was Resident Evil 6. So feel free to leave a comment about what you feel about Resident Evil, at the way the franchise is going, other horror games you may like, other horror movies, because I'm a huge fan of horror, the genre in both video games, books, and movies. So feel free to leave a comment in the video. You can follow me at Matty_Baughman on Twitter. Tweet at me what you're thinking in terms of this franchise, and I'm just so excited to talk about video games with you guys. So as always, have a great day and a greater game.